Alright, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heidi, and this video is finally going to be my July wrap-up video. I have been trying to record this video for days, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if I got burnt out of the books last month or what. I will say I just started Fourth Wing, and that's literally all I can think about is trying to finish that book. And that could be also the reason why I just don't want to talk about the books from last month, because I'm 100% focused on that one book. So all that, we're gonna go ahead and jump in and talk about the books that I have read for the month of July. And then I also want to kind of give you an idea of my TBR for the month of August, so we can go through that. So we have on my phone, I pulled up Storygraph because I cannot remember what I read in July. Looking at Storygraph, in the month of July, I read 11 books and a total of 4,797 pages, which is the most number of pages I have ever read in a month. Very proud about that. But let's go to all of the books that I have read so I can filter just by the month of July. So we're going to start with the first book that I read in July and then kind of work our way up to the most recent. Now, some of these I will say I don't remember a lot about them, so hopefully I'll be able to do some justice to these books. So the first book that I read in the month of July was Powerless. This is the Chestnut Springs book 3, written by Elsie Silver. I do not have the book. I was reading it on Kindle Unlimited. I gave that book 4.75 stars. Now, I loved all of the Chestnut Springs books. They're very easy to read. This one was a book on Jasper. Now, Jasper's not a official Eaton brother. He is the brother's best friend that has basically grown up with the Eaton boys since they were kids. So this was Jasper, and it was his story. And so you have him as a professional hockey player, and then you have the girl was a professional ballerina, and they were like childhood friends, and it was their kind of how their relationship bloomed. It was very good. I really did like Jasper, and it was probably one of my favorite books in the Chestnut Springs series. The next book that I read was Spare, and this was the memoir from Prince Harry. This one I got primarily just because I'm so fascinated with the royals. I like Prince Harry and I like Meghan Markle. This was his memoir. It kind of told behind the scenes on what it's like being a royal and being the spare royal, because Prince William is obviously the prince that's going to be a king, and Prince Harry was second in line and slowly bumped back down. I didn't give it any kind of star rating because it was a memoir, and it wasn't something that I felt needed rated, but I mean, I enjoyed it. It was interesting to read. The next book that I read was The Screaming Staircase, and I got this because my husband had told me that there was a Lockwood & Co. TV series on Netflix, I believe, and it was from a middle grade book. So I wanted to kind of read the first book in that series just to see what it was all about before I watched the TV series. And so I gave that 3.5. It's a middle grade, and it was good, but I know a lot of stories or a lot of books that are in a series, sometimes the first book isn't the best because it's having to build the world and build the characters. So I do plan on reading the second book, because the series on Netflix, the first, I think 3 episodes is from the first book, and then it goes in the second book. So I have not watched that part, but I do plan on reading it just to see how the characters evolve and how the storyline goes, and if I end up liking that series more than I did the first book. But I mean, it was a decent middle grade book. It was a really fast read because it was a middle grade, and it was enjoyable. The next book that I read in July was Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is the Dreamland Billionaire series. This is book 2. This is with Declan and Iris, or the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. I didn't really like because I'm not a fan of really possessive MMCs or really jealous MMCs, so I didn't really care for that. But this book I did like Declan. I like the relationship between Declan and Iris, and I gave this 4.75. This was a marriage of convenience story, and it was really good. I do have the last book. That one I think I'm really gonna like because that's on Cal, and he has so far been my favorite character of the three brothers, he's the one that I enjoy the most. I like his personality. So I'm going to be reading that, but this one was still good. I did like Declan, I did like Iris, and overall the story was very enjoyable. Next book I read was Reckless. Now this was book 4 in the Chestnut Spring series. This one was, I probably enjoyed the most. I gave it 4.75, but I think it was probably my favorite. This one was on Theo, and this one had a pregnancy trope, but I really enjoyed Theo. He was just a super enjoyable, funny character who truly did want to be a good dad and wanted to be in his child's life, and he wanted to take care of Winter, and it was a really good book. I really did enjoy it, and I think there's a book 5 coming out that I cannot wait to read, and I think it's going to be on Bo, which is the last, like, Eaton brother. Really wanting to read that one. Hopefully that's going to come out in the next month or so, I believe. The next book that I read, I really did not know what I was going to get into, and the book that I read was Haunting Adelaide. I gave this 4.5. This was a book 1 of the Cat and Mouse series. This was my first like dark romance, and I did not know how I was going to enjoy it. I will say once I got to about the halfway mark, I enjoyed it a little bit more. The very first part of it I did not enjoy because basically he's stalking Adelaide. There were some things that I didn't enjoy reading, but I enjoyed it at the end because I could see his feelings came out more, like it was more mutual. But at the very beginning, when it was not mutual, it was not something I liked to read about. It was 4.5. I am planning on reading the next book just to kind of see how it wraps up, but it was interesting. The next book that I read was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This was my second Emily Henry book. I did read Happy Place in June. So this was my July Emily Henry book, and I gave this 4.5. This one was more of a romance. Happy Place I thought was a romance, but that one's not really a romance. This one is. This is actually January and Gus, and they are both authors, and January goes to live in her dad's like beach house and ends up living right next to Gus, and they knew each other in college. She thought she didn't like him, and she thought that he didn't like her, but so there was a little bit of tension at the very beginning, but it's their relationship and kind of the internal things that are going on in each other's lives and kind of just the evolution of their relationship. And I really did enjoy it. I gave this 4.5, and yeah. These are the only 2 Emily Henry books that I have read, and I do plan on reading her again in the future. The next book that I read was The Elite. This is a young adult romance. This is essentially The Bachelor, and it's a story about America Singer, and she is in this book. This is book 2. She has made it to the top 6 of this selection series, or the selection to basically become the princess of the world. And I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed Maxon because he really does want to be with America, but he is basically giving her time to figure out if she wants to be with him, because he really likes her, but she's kind of like on the fence a little bit. She doesn't think that she has it to be queen. But I really liked it because he wasn't like pressuring her or basically being like, you should be queen, and if you aren't, then I'll just go to the next person. Like, he really wanted to leave it to her to have time to decide what she wants. So it was a decent book. I gave it a 3.75. It's a young adult. There's no like spicy scenes or anything because it is a young adult romance. So yeah, I plan on reading, the next one is The One. I think that's the last book in the like selection series, just to see kind of how it wraps up. The next book that I read was Heir of Fire. This is book 3 of the Throne of Glass series. If you count the prequel, then this is book 4. But this is, I think, from kind of my understanding of the Throne of Glass series, this is kind of where the story really starts to pick up. Like, the first couple of books were building the characters and building the world and the backstory and all that. But this book definitely was more action-packed, and it really brought out Selena, however you say, I don't know how to say her name. And You got introduced to some new characters that I have heard or I've seen their names in like TikToks and other YouTube videos, but I've never heard of them before this book. So I got introduced to Rowan in this book, and I really enjoyed it. So this one is, like I said, book 3. I do plan on reading book 4 this month, but this one I gave a 4.75. It was not a 5-star, but it was really, really, really good. I'm hoping that the next book is going to be even better. So hopefully I'll have a 5-star coming up soon, but I really did enjoy it. The next book that I read was Twisted Hate. This is book 3 of the Twisted series. I gave this 4.5. So this book is probably my favorite so far in the Twisted series. This one was with Jules and Josh, and this was kind of like a enemies to lover type book. It starts out being kind of a friends with benefits, or not even friends, like enemies with benefits type story, and then Jules and Josh kind of continue on and feelings start to be had, and a typical romance. But I really like Jules. I liked Jules. She was introduced in the other 2 books, but this was her story, so you really got to see who she was. And I really liked Jules' personality. She was very entertaining. I like kind of seeing where she came from and how she grew up and kind of what she had been through. And then Josh with all of his backstory and some of the struggles that he has. It was really good. So this one I gave 4.5. I have one more book in the series, and then I will be done with the Twisted series. And then I plan on reading Prince of Wrath. I think I'm going to be reading those after I get done with the Twisted series. And then the last book that I read was Minx by Sophie Lark, the first book I've ever read by her. And I read this 100% because of Heather McClary. I think she loves this book, and I specifically got it because she had said in one of her videos that on the Kindle side, whenever you are reading it, like you would have illustrations pop up just randomly that you weren't expecting, and I wanted to see what these illustrations were for this book, because I've never seen a book with illustrations in it other than like comics and stuff. But I got it because she really enjoyed it. This one was basically a escort who she only has a max of 3 clients, and she's like a high price escort. She makes a lot of money. And so she takes 3 clients, and you have the main character, Ramses, whatever. The main character is one of these really super high billionaires, and he wants to be her sole person. Like he wants her to drop the other 2 people, only want her to be with him. So that's kind of where it evolves, and it's very spicy, and it was a good spicy romance, but I just felt like it was just the spice. Like it really didn't have a lot of character, personality, connection. I like slow burn romance because you feel like you get the characters' perspectives and you kind of see the evolution, and it's not just attraction and that's it. I don't really care for that, because then it's just like that's it and there's nothing more to the relationship, and I felt like that's what Minx was. And so because of that, I gave it a 3.75. It was still good, but it just wasn't, I felt like it was just the spice and that was it. Like you really didn't get any romance. So that was all the books that I read in the month of July. So now really quickly, I want to talk about what I'm going to be doing in the month of August. So typically for my like TBRs, I have a set, like I'm going to read this stack of books and this is what I'm going to be focused on for the month of August. But I have a lot of books that I want to read, but then sometimes I don't feel like reading them, and I feel like I'm setting myself in a little box, and that's what I want to read because that's what I've said I'm going to read. And then when I get to the point where I need to read a new book, I don't really want to read those. So instead, the books that I am going to read for the month of August were Fourth Wing, which I'm reading already. I did want to finish the Capturing the Devil book. I started at the very end of August, or very end of July, but I didn't finish it in the month of July. So I did finish it in August. So that I got that done. And then the next book that I want to read, The Queen of Shadows, because this is book 4 of the Throne of Glass, because I'm going to get finished with the Throne of Glass series this year. So I want to get this book done, which is a big thick book. So this will be done in August. And then the last book that I want to get read in August is Red Rising. I finally found this used version at Second and Charles. I've been wanting to read this, finally have it. So I want to read this in August. So Fourth Wing, Queen of Nothing, Red Rising. Those are the 3 books I'm focusing on for the month of August. Everything else is all gonna be kind of mood books. I do have back behind me a bunch of romance books that I have just been slowly accumulating, and I want to read those in addition to some Kindle Unlimited books that I have found that I've downloaded as well. So I'm going to be slowly getting through those, but I don't really have a set list of books that I want to read. So that's kind of where I'm at in August. Like, I have 3 books, Fourth Wing, Queen of Shadows, and Red Rising, that I want to read in August. Everything else is mood. I'm just going to be mood reading in August and seeing where I go and how many books I can read and what I enjoy in August. So that is what I'm doing. That is what I've read in July. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have a favorite book that you read or you plan on reading in August, let me know. And other than that, I will see you in my next video. Bye.